We can't hear you, Wendy.
Okay. What can we do with our?
Rich, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is that not?
I can always hear you, Mike.
I'm sorry.
No offense, we can't all do Capel bowling.
That's it.
Okay, how about, is this any better? What if, Gugata Matsumoto. Is there a directionality to that?
It's a multi-directional, that's why.
Oh.
It's three-sided, so you should be able to try now.
All right, any better?
Much better.
Good.
Terry, let's do a voice check for you.
Wendy's the only one that needs to be heard.
That's not true.
Right.
Did you guys hear Terry at all?
Yeah.
Sort of, okay. All right,
You'll
So,
have to go to
we'll,
Capel voice.
I know.
I'm sorry.
We'll all have to, just please, for folks on virtually, let us know when you can't hear things. I know how frustrating that is. Actually, I've got 1 minute.
You have yours?
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we don't, correct me if I'm
Thank
wrong,
you.
Mark, we don't need to do the whole right to know list thing, right?
That's correct.
Okay. We can just jump right to roll call. Oh, all right. So why don't we, what's the best way to do it? We've been doing it alphabetically. Let's do that since we have a bit of both. So Nancy,
Nancy Knight, present.
Mike,
Mike Capel, present.
Bill,
Bill Larson, present and member.
Wendy Rathgaber, member, present. John,
John Racine, present member.
Rich,
Rich Rita, ex officio, present.
Bill Spence,
Bill Spence, member, present.
Terry,
Terry Wade, alternate.
Rob. No Rob. Okay. Lisa.
Lisa Raitt, alternate.
All right. Great. Thanks, everyone. So has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the May 13 meeting?
Yes, Wendy, this is Rich, line 23. I see we have a couple people whose last names we don't know, Ed M. and a Vicky, last name unknown, Lanu, as I used to call them. I assume this is because of they were Zoom and they didn't further identify themselves. So perhaps we can just put them at the end and that in parentheses so it doesn't look like it was just forgotten.
That's a good strategy. We should probably take this this minute for folks of the public who are on via Zoom, just to put your name in under comments, your full name, so you can be listed as present. Any other comments?
You're all set.
Terry?
Cool.
Mike Capel, I move we accept the minutes with the addition of those last names.
I'll second the motion.
Alrighty.
Do we
Okay,
still
how
have
do
to
we,
do this?
that was, yeah, how do we do the acceptance? Do we have to do a roll call since it's hybrid for votes? Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Okay.
Alrighty, so all those in favor of accepting the meeting minutes as amended, Nancy,
Nancy Knight, yes.
Mike,
Mike Capel, yes.
Bill Larson,
Yes.
Wendy, yes, John,
John Racine, yes.
Rich,
Rich, yes.
Bill Spence,
Yes.
Terry. Oh, I'm sorry, you're an alternate. I can't get used to that. You're here in person. You're back and forth.
Right.
All right. Excellent. So, our next order on the agenda. Ben, hello, Ben, good morning.
On.
From what I understand, you'd like us to hold off on opening the public hearing this morning, is that true?
Yeah. We had an email come through Tuesday that kind of threw us into uncertainty. But just last night, I think we've come to a tentative terms with the abutter. So it's not a huge change. It's just minor stuff that we're going to try to add in. I guess one of my requests potentially, just because I didn't see this coming, is there any possible way to get like a special meeting or anything in between the next one? We're just trying to get, I had guys lined, on the schedule, we're trying to get this thing moving.
What's your time frame as far as?
So I
getting
could get the
your-
changes just a couple days. I mean, it's pretty minor. If you guys want to see it, I mean, I do have a graphic shown that I sent to them. It's basically just moving the driveway back into the center of the driveway easement and moving some of the snow storage on our lot. And then removing 2 parking spots that are up top. Those 2 were above, I think we had 3 above the requirement, and they wanted, more snow storage, a little bit less parking up there. So that was the major change. And then the other changes, they wanted just a robust planting plan below. So we already added some trees for this meeting, but we're going to work with them. That's kind of the one left agenda item with them. So it's just adding some plantings and just shifting the driveway up like 3 feet, and the 2 parking spots getting removed for vegetation and snow storage.
So,
So I could probably get them done honestly by like Monday. And I just didn't know if in like 2 weeks, maybe we could do another meeting, just so I could present.
Is that still a 21-day thing, Mark?
Well, Wendy, I think if you could take Ben up on his offer to see the plan, it would help you make a determination whether you can continue the submission.
Yep.
Or renotice it.
okay, see if there's significant enough changes that it would
And
be
just,
noticed.
yeah, and just a reminder that there hasn't been an application accepted as complete yet. So what you'd be continuing is the review of the submission for completeness, and if it's found complete, then the public hearing.
Is it possible to do that? Is that a procedural thing that we have to do before the final meeting, or is that something we could do today just to accept as complete or anything? Or
I mean, the conceptual is always at the developer's choice, but you
okay.
could certainly do that a little bit this morning if you want, just to give us an idea of where you're coming from.
I don't think I mean, obviously on Monday, it's going to be the same plans. They asked us to shift some stuff and add some more plants, but the submittal, I guess as of today, is not going to be different. It would just be, I guess on Monday, we'll just have slightly more stuff added.
Yeah, Mark?
So you have 2 different issues that Tara is talking about. Completeness, remember, you have to accept it, find it complete,
Right,
and then you can open the public hearing.
right. Yeah, we can't
Okay.
open the public.
So if he's gonna change the plan,
No, yeah.
it wouldn't make any sense to accept it as complete because you don't
No.
have the plan.
Okay.
No, right. I was just saying if we did it like as a conceptual today with what he has, but if it's not complete.
Can that be done at the same meeting?
I think seeing it as a conceptual now would be really helpful to the board to decide whether they can continue this case,
Right.
or we need to renotice it.
Okay.
Okay,
You want me to share my screen?
if you have, yeah, you have that capacity.
I think I'm disabled. Something it says.
We'll fix that.
Okay. Just let me know when I'm ready.
It's coming.
Okay.
Now you should be able.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Here we go. So,
Can you?
can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, yep. So that's the update that I sent them. So the changes that you'll see, it's we shifted the driveway back kind of closer to where it was originally. And you know, snow storage is not for my stuff. It's not shown on the easement or her property. You know, the driveway is technically not our property, so there may be some, but we're handling all of our snow storage now on our side. So we added, you know, now that we brought it out, we do have a little bit more area for snow storage. And then it was the amount of parking up there was a comment. So we just decided to remove 2 parking spots. So now we meet the minimum 2 spots requirement per unit plus 1. And then so we have 1 down below. And then down below, it hasn't been shown yet, but we added, I think, like 3 or 4 trees from the last meeting. I think we're up to about 13 trees. They're just, right now they're drawn in. They look kind of like bushes, but if you count them, there's like 13 trees down there. But we're working with them to adhere to a robust planting plan. So we're going back to landscape architect. I think we're going to add ground cover, ornamentals, you know, some stuff to fill in the base level. And other than that, I think we've come to a deal. Oh, in the AC units, we're going to add screening for the neighbor around the AC units. And then the dumpster, we actually are going to do arborvitaes on her side of the dumpster to kind of hide that. So those are pretty much the kind of terms we came to with them.
Okay, so just to be clear, so from where we sit, all the blue areas are the snow storage?
Storage, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So as I look at this, you're gonna have snow storage backing right up to the multi-purpose trail?
I mean, coming down, most of it's at the end, but we've always shown some along there, just because of driveway. But we're gonna also have a removal or transport, what's it called, thing in our documents. But we do meet the 25%. I believe that's what the engineers are telling me. But yeah, most of it's going to be pushed down. There's going to be some dribble along the edge, but most of it's going to be pushed down to the end. In there.
I know. We thought the window was great. Sorry. Thought the window was great but yeah, Jenny, you probably can't hear a thing, can you? Thank you. Yeah. All right, sorry. Can you identify that stream? Do you have like a little cursor you can run across that, Ben?
Oh, wait, the stream?
Yeah,
Over here.
thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of right along the property line on the top and left.
What about the snow storage for the easement? You don't show it, I know you mentioned that, but because you said it's not your property. But when you clear that easement, typically half of the road would be pushed off to one side and half would be pushed off the other side. But that doesn't work very well here because of the fact that it's continuous with the parking area. But what is the plan with regard to half of the snow storage from the easement?
Yeah, so I can kind of barely hear you, but so you're saying that typically when you plow the driveway, some goes to the right and the left, and how are we going to handle that?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of made it clear to everybody. I mean, that shared driveway is not technically mine. I mean, that was actually supposed to be installed prior to me closing on the lots, but because of winter and timing, it just didn't happen. I mean, I didn't get it. I didn't design it. I didn't cut it. So I'm not saying any snow storage from that shared driveway is not going to go to the right. I pretty much put it back in its original place. And then everything on our side, you know, so we're going to plow down to the end, push to the right, and then the plow is going to kind of turn around, and they're going to have to plow the parking lots side to side along with the road and push it into the 3 places. I mean, it's not a super easy one, but the plows will be able to get it done.
If you include that, you still have 25% ratio?
Yeah. So we could still get it. I mean, the problem is like up top, it was designed as a 20-foot wide easement for a shared driveway. I don't think there was any, I don't know what studies was done when it was originally approved. But looking at it, I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be, the plow is going to come down on the top And on the shared driveway, that's technically not even mine. Some might go to the right, but I looked at this as like everything from the middle of the driveway down, because they're probably going to turn around or back up, or is going to have to be pushed down. Because now that I'm parking on this side of the easement of the shared driveway, all of that side road is going to have to come down into my property. So that's what's going to be pushed down and in between the buildings.
Wendy, I think I started this slippery slope, but I'd encourage the board to keep the focus on whether you can,
It's enough to,
whether you can
yeah.
continue it or renotice it. And I think, is Joe's there? So I don't have to start my comment with, I'm not a lawyer, but here's what I think. Just leave it to him.
yes, thankfully. So, I mean, it strikes me as definitely changes, but not so substantive that we can't just push this meeting off. Is that correct, Joe?
I would agree with that. I mean, you're not changing location of building cells or anything at this point. You've added vegetation and moved the driveway within the existing easement area, so.
No comments.
Why don't I just put it as a chat?
Whatever you can do.
Wendy, we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta either come closer or speak up.
Yeah, come over
Yeah,
here.
come on over. Join us at the table.
I try to avoid that. No, I was just saying that based on what you have here of a additional vegetation and what appears to be an increase, just a shifting of the driveway within the existing easement, I don't see it as substantive enough that, renoticing or something would have to do that. It's this same buildings, same locations, everything else seems to be the same.
To clarify what you just said for those of us that don't speak legal. All right.
I don't either.
Neither do I. But I think what I heard you say is that we can approve this contingent upon.
No, we're not approving.
No.
We're
No,
moving.
no,
We're
no.
moving
This
the
is
meeting.
simply for purposes of, the request by the applicant was, can he continue this, but to a special meeting? And then Tara's raising the question of notice. So the examination of this plan was just to see, okay, tangibly what you're receiving on Monday. I believe it was Monday that was agreed on for the submission. Does that drastically change what the application was? And I don't believe so, based on the fact that almost everything's the same. I would assume a board member could have easily asked, hey, can I see 2 more trees? And that could have been added. I mean, it's not, reconfiguring the buildings or something where somebody just received notice. And obviously you'll have to pick a date and time certain here at this meeting to do so. But anybody who has read the notice would easily come in and understand that this is,
So we don't,
in essence, the same thing.
so we don't have to allow that extra time for renoticing. The full what we've noticed so far is appropriate.
I believe so. I mean, I'm not seeing anything that substantively different. Tara, are you? I mean, I don't know if you.
No, I would lean toward making sure that people have 10 days, so that if we're expecting the plan on Monday, that it not be next week, but that people still have the 10 days to see the revised plan, so that you're meeting the spirit of the law.
That sounds reasonable. So if we were to shoot for the week of the, look at the 24th,
Yeah.
how does that work for all involved? Ben, 24th?
Yeah, that works. I could get it in on Monday, and that would be, I think that's 10 days. That would give me enough time. I'll have my engineers today, tomorrow, get it together Monday morning and get it up to there. So the 24th works for me. Yeah, the 24th. The 24th, yeah, that works.
How does that work for the rest of the board?
It's okay with me.
Hey, Wendy, will we be able to zoom in if we're out of town?
At this point, correct me if I'm wrong, we can do hybrid. So as long as we have a quorum present, we can have others zoom in. Is that correct?
Well, I believe this Friday, tomorrow, isn't that when the governor's gonna see if he's re-upping the state of emergency.
Right, but hasn't it always been that if we have a quorum present?
Oh,
others
you're
can call
talking
in?
under the actual law.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you have the
Yeah.
quorum here, you can use these other devices, yeah.
So as long as enough people commit to being
It's on
here.
the board.
So we have Mike, Terry, Nancy by Zoom. Bill?
I'm checking
Okay. John?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
It could be yes or no. But if we do it on the 24th, are we doing it in the morning at 8 a.m.?
That's what I was thinking, just for consistency.
Okay. Oh, fine.
Okay. Lisa?
I'm not sure. I have to
Okay,
my schedule.
okay. Rich?
24 at 8 o'clock is good for me.
Okay. Bill Spence? I know you're there somewhere.
Yes,
Okay.
it's good for me.
All right. The Brady squares have gone away. Who am I missing? Me. Yeah, oh, is there a question?
There is a question, what is the distance between the dumpster enclosure and Moss Pass Road?
Yeah, I think we can get into all these details on the 24th. Is it, yeah. Just so we don't get too in the weeds.
Well,
since-
If he knows the answer to the question, you can answer it right.
Well, you haven't really opened a public hearing or
Yeah.
anything at this point.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay, so we will,
I could join the meeting sometime around 10 o'clock.
okay.
Prior to that, I can't do it.
Not that I wouldn't want you participating, but I'm hoping we're done by then.
Yeah.
But, but we would have,
Check, Bill. You can text Right. us.
so we would have, and so physically present, we would have enough people. So we have Terry, Mike, me, John. Lisa's gonna check. Rich, would you be able to be physically present? Okay,
Yes.
so we,
I won't be at the doctor's appointment.
okay. So we're out too.
Yes.
But I think.
I could
we'll
do it
be
as well.
okay. Oh, good. Thank you, Bill. So we'll have a quorum. Okay,
Well, you counted me now. If there's 7 members, there's 3 here and 4 on the.
There's gonna be 4, because Rich and Bill can come in.
but that's a good question though. How does that work? If the full members, say there's only 2 full members here and 2 alternates here,
4.
of the full members have to be.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Get some.
Okay. Okay, but we're okay. So everyone mark that on your calendars.
So
Just have to be careful, the 24th. 8 a.m. Yeah.
What was Joe's answer on the alternates, just for my knowledge?
That alternates can't count.
Yeah, they wouldn't count for that. You need a quorum of the
Unless
board
seated.
physically present.
Okay.
No, they're saying, no.
If they're
Seated,
seated
they
as a
count.
voting member, you have to have 4 voting members.
Right.
here,
Right,
Okay.
So if they're seated, they're
if
okay.
you only had 3 full members and the rest were alternates, as long as 4 of them that are gonna act on that here.
no, but if we have 3 full members here, 2 full members in Zoom and 1 alternate here, you're
Count.
saying it wouldn't count.
It would count because we have 7.
No, I thought that, okay, maybe I
Well,
misunderstood.
You'd have to seat the alternate. The full members via Zoom cannot vote.
Yeah, you run into that issue because if you're using the alternate in the room to achieve that, they're now seated as a member here.
Right,
So now let's say like all your membership was here between there and there and on Zoom, but you didn't have
Right.
a quorum. Well, now you have members that wouldn't be able to participate that are on Zoom because you've seated the alternates in their place in order to satisfy the quorum.
right, so we can't do that.
I mean,
It would
kind
be,
of could, but you know, I mean, but now you're bouncing people.
so we
up.
can't ever seat more people than our full members. We can have a quorum with less than our full membership, but we can't ever seat more than our full membership.
No, because your board has a specific amount.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
then you have the alternates to fill to get up to that.
yeah. Okay,
But novel things that the Zoom stuff is giving us for questions.
yes, keeps us interesting. Okay, so we're good then for the 24th?
Cool.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, thank you very much.
present, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Yeah, very good. Just we'll send out Alicia, help us remember. Those who have committed to be here will be here.
Those who promised. Reminder email.
Great. Yeah,
Maybe I'll go
Couple days
pick up
before,
those.
is that helpful, or a week before, like, no, or-
yeah, maybe as you receive the paperwork and then again, a couple days later, a couple days after that. Yeah, we can bring bribes.
I was gonna zip down to Dunkin' Donuts and pick up a dozen donuts, and bribe people.
All right. Well, so then that takes that off our agenda. Thanks, Ben. We will see you
Thank
in a
you.
couple weeks.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe. Just to up as we're moving into old business, to update the board with sorry, Alicia, can we maximize that? I just the
You
eyes.
don't need Joe
I don't think so.
further.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Are you? Yeah.
I'll put that on the calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good.
day, everyone.
All right. Thanks.
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you. Makes it easier, these eyes to see. An update briefly on the golf course application that had been, from our last meeting, going to be on for this month. The information has kind of been coming in slowly for the deck. So Craig understands we need to do it in July.
We received his updated engineered plans
Yeah.
yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
So we will be sending those out to you and doing the notices that we have to in July.
Okay, great. And I heard from him that he's working on getting the surveying done. So it's all in process and should be in plenty of time for July. So we're not forgetting about Craig. It's just a work in progress.
But that application has not been accepted, right?
Right.
We're right.
Right.
The application has not been finished. Okay. So we'll be sending it to Tara as soon as we have all of them.
Right. Yeah, just wanted to update since we talked about it last month. I feel like we should go on to the master plan revision while we're a bit fresh. Tara, would you like to, I know everyone, I assume, received the items from Tara, her initial breakdown of how to approach the project. And I think that was part of our homework to review that for today's meeting. I don't know if we give out any gold stars or not. And then we'd also received the outline from her to for a review. Does anyone need that printed out? The draft master outline?
No,
Do we need that printed?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Alicia? Sorry, you're gonna get your steps in today. Can we get some copies of the draft?
What could you put up? Let's just put up on the screen.
Yeah, she does have that.
Okay, well, if you just put up on the screen, it's probably okay.
It just came in yesterday, I think, or the day before.
Yeah.
That wasn't another question coming in, was it?
No, I'm trying
Okay.
to figure out, his name.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So Tara, would you like to go ahead and take it away for our master plan?
Sure. I hadn't planned much for this morning because I thought we'd be pretty ready to be done after your hearing. So I guess just kind of one last look at the work plan that we've had in front of us the last few meetings and not really had time to talk about. When I put it together last fall, I was looking at what I'd received at that time and assumed, here's what I think a work plan would look like if I took it from here using.
Sorry, Tara, can you screen share that just so everyone's on the same page? Oh, it's coming. The power's coming.
Um,
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Have you got that, Tara?
I'm getting there.
Okay,
As long as we're talking about the master plan, I don't know, did anybody else attend the May?
the OSI.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
All right,
I missed part of it, but yeah.
they met several times, meant, just so everyone understands, several times mentioned the importance, surprised me, of a master plan.
Didn't surprise you. You were-
Didn't surprise
you were
me. I mean,
reminded.
I know we've been working hard on it, but they really emphasized
Yeah.
the importance of having a live master plan.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's why it's great to have
Yep.
have a professional kind of grounding us
Yeah.
in this.
Do you know that's the first planning board training I ever did when I started working in New Hampshire in 1988 was at the time I wasn't really thrilled with public speaking, and I made the mistake of mentioning that to my new boss, who assigned me to the statewide planning board training session in Concord on
Nice.
master plans. I had to get up to speed really quick on New Hampshire master plans and public speaking, because it was then everybody in a large auditorium. Anyway,
Excellent.
this is the work plan that I was talking about, and it's been sent out to everybody a few times by now. I think, we're talking about the startup task today. And I talked about some, and this is reflected in the outline, I'll share it too, but I talked about kind of reorganizing your vision section. Has a lot of stuff in it. It has some of the things I think of as more background data to go in a community profile type thing. I'd separate that out so that you have introduction to the master plan. What is it and how did you do it? And then vision and goals, and then a separate community profile. And I think that the work that the committees did on housing and economic development, a lot of that feeds right into this, what I think of as community profile, given where are we at now on population, housing, and the local economy. Recreation and culture was super complete. I think it's just a matter of reformatting that to fit whatever format we come up with for the rest of the document. I didn't receive much on land use, just a little bit of update to the zoning description. So I think there's a lot to do with that, where I would want to partner closely with a committee so that we work kind of in tandem to do a description of existing land use and then talk about future land use in the context of the zoning districts, because I think your zoning districts are pretty well thought out and you've revised them as you've gone along. So they're a pretty good map, I think, for your future land use at this point. They didn't just get set 20 years ago and stayed there. Housing, I'd put up, most of what I saw, I think would go on a community profile. But then I would want to talk about, I think housing issues are kind of land use issues when you talk about things like workforce housing, short-term rentals, and tiny homes, that those could be talked about as current and emerging land use issues. And there's as many ways to organize a plan as there are those of you sitting there. Everybody up with something a little different. This is just talking about how the logic flows for me. I don't have anything on transportation from you guys, but we do have that really great pedestrian village plan that I think you want to build transportation on. So, that would be my plan for that. But I would probably have some homework for the group on that. Some of the local issues like the shuttle, the ski shuttle and whatnot. One question I had in looking at the transportation is, it wouldn't be that hard to plug in some other infrastructure, some other community facilities. How I would normally do that is write the questions, and then we'd kind of make a list on the questions, and you guys could kind of break that up maybe, or maybe you already have it all in one place as part of your CIP. But I think one of the things that's just kind of missing from the plan is at least a brief description of the community facilities and the major changes and improvements are coming, like rework in the wastewater treatment plant. Because your CIP that I know you do have is really supposed to grow out of the facilities section of your master plan. Master plan should be saying, here are the big improvements or changes we know we need now. Here are the others that we would need to serve this future land use as we go along. So
All right, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that somewhere in land use, there should be mention of the new water treatment plant.
No, I think that after the land use section, it's helpful to have a facilities section that says, well, okay, if we get this land use pattern we want and growth, then here's what we're gonna need for facilities, and here's what we have now. So I think instead of just having transportation, it would be good to broaden that to be community facilities in general. And I don't think it would take that much time or work to do. Just something I would suggest thinking about adding. It's a little bit, you're kind of missing it because you do a CIP, but what's that based on?
Makes sense.
Conservation and preservation, you have this great natural resource inventory. My thought as part of work plan would be for me to try to engage the Conservation Commission and ask them to review the recommendations in the natural resource inventory, and then meet with the Conservation Commission to talk through those and see which recommendations make sense to include in the master plan. So that's, does anybody have big changes or redirection to suggest on the work plan?
I think it looks great. I kind of like your idea. I read through the Carroll master plan that you'd sent out.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate how that flow works a bit better than having like the distinct chapters like we have it. It seemed like a more, because I feel like we do repeat ourselves chapter to chapter, so I like your approach. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
The state, the RSA has a particular way of going through it. When they say to write a master plan, to give an example of how to do it and so forth. Is it required that we go by that outline that the state presents in the RSA, or is it?
No.
Is it flexible?
I haven't gone by that outline since 1989.
Only took you a year.
Yeah, no, the first master plan I didn't know any better, but I just updated what the city of Claremont had. But then I thought, we don't live in topical silos, right? We live in a community that's got a bunch of stuff going on. It's got the people end of things, which I think it was the population and housing economy. And we have the landscape. That's what do we want to protect? What are the development limitations? If you help the community articulate their goals and needs and desire and vision, then you can apply those to those assets that you've looked at and the needs. And more than anything, the master plan is a land use plan. It's a plan for the future development of the community. So then I kind of see those things as starting into land use. And then, well, what facilities do we need to serve that land use? And I think when you try to think about it in these discrete chapters, you miss those interconnections that make it a comprehensive plan.
So you're not leaving yourself vulnerable if you don't follow the RSA.
No. That's
I think,
authorizing, that's just enabling legislation.
Okay. Lisa? you wanna go?
yes, I think from my opinion, we have two problems. We need more parking at certain spots, and we need some workforce housing. We don't have any,
Yeah, and that's all the type of thing that we can
and that's because,
incorporate in.
yeah, it's very expensive.
And those are good examples. If you had a housing chapter and you had an economic development chapter and you had a land use chapter, which one would you talk about workforce housing in?
Right.
Housing.
Well, but combining them all,
Yeah.
making them interconnected, you don't have to pick a chapter. You can, and then you can make it a stronger statement. So it's easier.
Now, the question on workforce housing is you almost have to bifurcate it. Because you have workforce housing, for example, for the resort, where they can have over 200 people working in ski season. And then you have workforce housing for the really important people like you.
Let's see.
But
But yeah, but it does transcend chapters.
yeah,
Yes.
but it's kind of slightly different animals.
Exactly. And that's why I think Tara's approach would help us embrace that and make it a stronger statement.
So let me put the outline up if I. This is how I see it. Can you see this now? I never know.
Yes.
Can I scroll down though? This is how I see it hanging together. It is one way that it's organized with the introduction, talking about what is a master plan and how did we make it, separate out the vision and goals, and then have this community profile that I already have, most of what I need for that from the committees. And then I think in your case, I'd do conservation and preservation next, the kind of that the NRI dealt with some development limitations as well as important resources. So I think that covers there. And then we talked about land use. As I think about your community, I think this would be a logical way to organize it with what's the land use pattern now, what's the future land use is, and I again think the zoning districts are a good way to talk about it in your case. I don't always, they're not always the same thing, but I think in your case they are, because you've spent a lot of time making sure that those zoning districts are achieving or trying to achieve your goals for future land use. And then kind of have this current and emerging issues section. I think recreation and culture is really a part of facilities, but it's important enough in Waterville Valley to be its own separate section, like you've drafted. And I think that's a great draft that I saw. and then I'd recommend expanding the transportation to be community facilities in general, facilities and utilities. Not to have a big, long, detailed analysis of each one, but at least to just mention what you have and some of the big changes that you know need to happen. And you could put parking in there too. As a facility.
Mm.
Then you're talking about how to serve this future land use. And I think, you know, you talked about the importance of economic development. I think that could go in this current and emerging issues format. But again, it's just one way to slice it, and each of you could come up with one just as applicable. You could have the policies and recommendations in each section and summarized in this last section. Either way, I'd recommend having them in a section alone, because that's really your executive summary of the plan. That's what I want to see you get out once a year and ask, go through the list and ask, how are we doing?
That makes sense. And that probably helps keep the document kind of more alive.
Yeah.
Just by keying in.
Yeah, I mean, you can put, I don't like some people go as far in the action plan as having, you know, what year things are going to happen or like that, but I've never seen anybody implement it that way. But I do think it helps to at least identify who the lead would be on each item. Is it the select board? Is it the planning board? Is it the conservation commission? And then everybody has a list of what the plan says they should be focusing on. I think it's a good, helpful filter.
Tara, in your experience, do any master plans include discussions of education?
You know, yes, because you said any.
Or should we? Maybe
but
rephrase it.
It's, you know, it's tough to get, it's tough in most communities to get the school administration and school board engaged enough in the master plan to include it in a meaningful way. I mean, a lot of communities have tried, and I think it's good to do, but it's tough. My experience has been it's tough to do.
I don't think we'll have a problem here.
Well, I would include, you know, I'd call this then kind of community facilities, and you'll find out now I can't type. But you know, I think it's about the building, not the services for all of these things, right? This isn't a community services plan. That's not really what it should be in the master plan. The master plan should focus on the facilities needed to serve the future land use, current or future land use. So where you're talking about education, you want to keep the focus on the building or buildings. I think it's probably wouldn't find that this recreation and culture section focuses on the programs and services, because another element of the master plan is it's a marketing tool, right? You'll have it on your website, and somebody thinking about moving their family or starting a business in Waterville Valley is going to look at the master plan. So I think what you guys did with this recreation and culture section is great, and I wouldn't change that. But I don't think you need to do that for all the services in town. And I think you'll never finish the plan if you do either. You'll end up having it be if there are services in a community where community members express a lot of concerns through the master plan process, then a master plan might recommend a separate look at community services, but it shouldn't include it. Did that answer your question?
I just asked the question. One of the things that, putting on a different hat, that we have found in the last year is how important our school has been in people staying here.
Yeah.
As again, with my other hat, one of my other hats, it has become really obvious that in numerous cases, parents are staying here because the kids are so happy with the school. And which is, I don't have to tell you how great our school is. But that's why I asked the question. When you say it's a marketing plan, I think our school is part of our marketing today, especially we have seen that today.
Yeah.
In the last year.
And that's why, well, is that economic development? It is part of economic development. So, so it's going to be helpful to me if I could receive a list of who's on what work group. And if we, want to make this a partnership with me just doing what a planner needs to do and you guys doing what, educated, informed residents could do, then I'll start sending out homework and questions, if that makes sense, to get things going. I'll write some things and I'll do all the editing, but I'd expect you guys to be the boots on the ground, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we want to keep as much off your plate as possible, just also from a budget standpoint.
Budget, and the more, it's your plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tara, I do think though that our school is a competitive advantage for Waterville Valley compared to other towns. I mean, it truly is. It's one of the best elementary schools in the state. So I think we need to highlight it.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like you guys are in agreement of not just having transportation anymore, but expand that.
Yeah, so there'd be another chapter for facilities.
Except not really a
Not
chapter of flow.
but
Yes.
Another section.
Yes.
To cover that says
Facilities. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. So this is one of the things I left in my notebook at home. I know we went through who's in each chapter last time. Can we just go over that again? Housing. Who's in housing? Terry.
Bill Spence and me.
Terry and Bill Spence.
And Mike.
And Mike. Okay. Housing economy was Bill, and Wendy. Conservation and preservation, John.
And Rich.
And Lisa had joined last meeting, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
Land use.
I was Nancy and Rich.
Yeah. Now, I have a question. Is everybody supposed to be on 2? Is that how it's been working?
Not necessarily.
No.
Oh.
Are you calling some of the slackers?
No, I was just trying to remember. I got to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, now that Lisa's here, I wouldn't mind coming off of recreation, conservation.
Those were 2 different. Conservation and recreation were 2 different.
I'm sorry, it was conservation.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll have John and Lisa on conservation.
Okay.
Land use, recreation and culture. Who is that?
I'm on that one.
I'm on that with Nancy and Rob, I think, right, Nancy?
Yeah.
Transportation,
So that was Nancy and who on recreation and culture?
John,
Nancy, John, and Rob. Transportation, did we have transportation?
I don't think you did.
No. That was it, right? Like 5?
But who wants to do, who wants to be like boots on the ground for transportation?
I'll help with that because it sounds like economics going away a bit. Anyone else? Transportation?
I'll do it with you.
Okay.
Do we want to do education?
Well, that would be facilities once we get to that. So anyone else for transportation? Yeah.
And,
We
and
might-
that would be the broadened community facilities group.
Right.
So they're not distinct. There's gonna be, it's gonna be transportation and facilities together.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Transportation and facilities. Wendy, Mike, anyone else? Okay. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Were there any other little groups that you would think would be helpful, or we can just
Yeah,
approach that as a
Let's see as we go. I've got to think this through a little bit more. You might want to send me the list in case my notes aren't
Yeah.
here, everybody. So I had one more thought I just wanted to share on the master plan before we move away from it. I watched you guys spend quite a few meetings focused on making a just perfect one sentence vision
Vision.
statement.
Yeah.
And what I heard from that as a planner was people kind of trying to sort out, first of all, how to fit a beautiful and complex community with a lot of assets into one sentence. And a focus on, should it be a community for families, or should it be a resort community, or should it be a community for retirees? When in my mind as a planner, it can be all those things. So I just want to kind of share that thought, and maybe talk about vision and goals at the next meeting. Does that make sense? And I'll also be putting together homework and questions on all of these topics. But as a discussion, I think if we could talk about goals and not worry so much about a one sentence thing, things will move quicker.
That would be a relief.
It would be helpful. Could I,
Oh, yeah, Mark.
Tara, I am a little bit hung up. I think that it's gonna be difficult to combine transportation and facilities. Given that we have such a large issue like parking, like pedestrianization, and all of that, I think you really need to separate the facilities discussion from the transportation discussion. They are two totally different things. When you're talking, when you say facilities, I think of the buildings, the infrastructure under the roads. Transportation has not only the physical condition of the roads, but it also has all of that other stuff in the pedestrian study. And I really would like to see that if the board could, to go into two committees.
I agree. I think
Yeah,
there's a lot.
I've always broken it out as a major section, whether it's a separate chapter or a part of facilities. It's really what you're talking about is how things are numbered and how the headings are set up. We're not talking, I don't think we're saying anything different about the focus.
Right, exactly. But I think we need other people working on the facilities side while some people work on the transportation side.
Okay, so we break that into two different committees, then what should that look like?
I was thinking that.
So let's, so if Wendy and Mike do transportation, who's gonna do facilities?
I'm gonna have to be on that. If school is gonna be part of facilities, it only makes sense that everybody knows I'm on school board.
Would you rather do that instead of transportation?
Except that leaves you alone, and I would never do that.
Well, we would need to get other people involved anyway.
You know, I would do that.
But
It's
you already
okay.
have a CIP,
That's true.
of the board, which could handle the facilities that already participated.
I always thought CIP is being forward-looking, more forward-looking than actual current looking. Am I wrong?
No, they look at what we have.
Okay. Okay.
So you're saying the folks doing
Well,
the CIP?
What if you have the CIP subcommittee be the facilities? There are people.
Good. So who is that?
Who's doing that?
That's Terry,
Okay.
Bill, Spence, and John.
How do you guys feel about that, Terry, Bill, and John?
That's a pretty man slacker, but they have to do it.
Well, except if that's gonna be facilities and we're gonna include the school, at least for the school portion, I have to be kind of
They would
attached.
Participate in the, I mean, this is
Yeah.
coming back to the whole board. anyway.
Yeah, okay.
It's just,
Alright.
who's gonna,
I've made a note to when I write down the questions that I have about each facility, I'll send the school one to you, Mike.
Okay.
Bill, Spence, and John, you're good at being volunteered for facilities?
No.
Okay,
All right.
Backed out. I'm on 4 different committees right now.
okay,
Plus these 2, that's 6.
okay. So not John.
Then I'll jump in there.
Okay, Bill Spence, let's see.
Well, if Mike is there, the job is done. Okay, I'll work with Mike to make that happen.
Mike,
Well,
Bill, and
Ter-
Terry?
Terry, Mike. Okay, so Mike, how are you gonna cover all this? I know.
It's too much. It's too much, Mike, I think. Why don't I do facilities in your stead?
Okay,
Okay.
Rich,
Terry,
Rich, Terry, Bill Spence.
Bill.
We're just going to get Mike a cape so that he can fly from one to the other.
There is a question
Oh.
here about, is it appropriate to include maintenance in the master plan? Maintenance in general appearance.
Maintenance, like,
Well, that's part of it.
That's part of
Yeah.
facilities.
or they mean like plantings and that type.
Well, no, I always saw
It is
that.
appropriate to include it. That was the question.
But yeah, so it would be
And,
included.
Maintenance of existing facilities in terms of identifying which facilities need to be improved.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Just major things.
yeah.
Like might mention if something needs to be made handicap accessible, or if it's gonna need an addition or more parking. Those size things that would feed into a capital improvement program.
Tara, I have one question. How does town staff get integrated into this
Yeah.
discussion?
Well, that's who the committee members are gonna go ask for the information, I think.
Because I need to tell department heads, who are you gonna be looking to talk with, and when, and, you know,
Yeah.
we need to know that.
So,
Get that scheduled. I want you guys to.
so Mark, why don't I, send you first the kind of list, because you'll need to correct my information on what facilities we're talking about. So why don't I start with you with the list of
Okay,
facilities and questions, and then you can coordinate that.
yeah, recreation and culture, I'm assuming you're gonna want the rec director and the Curious George Cottage director and those sorts of people to be participating in the discussion,
But,
right?
right, but to engage the planning board committee, it would be the planning board members that connect with those people, but
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I just need to let people know that who's gonna be reaching out to them and generally when to expect that to happen.
so if I send you the list first is what I'm thinking, then you can
Yeah, put
the
everyone,
intermediary.
okay, that's good.
Great. Okay,
I just want to be clear and I know that, and I agree with you in terms of integrating the economic development throughout the entire thing. But that somehow we're going to end up addressing the question of, that I keep hearing all the time, which is, are we a community or are we a resort community? And trying to bring some clarity as to what direction we ought to be sending the town in.
Well, because I've heard so much discussion about that question, I've really come to the feeling that you want to be both, and that's okay. I've heard this planning board debate that at so many meetings for so long that it's become clear to me that it's a false dichotomy.
Okay.
That's my thought. So let me see what I can do in terms of putting it in goals, and we'll facilitate that. Those draft goals will facilitate that conversation next time.
great. So then I'll get you the list of who's on which committee, so you have that for sure. Everyone has their homework to think about visions and goals and anything else that you send us in the meantime, Tara, for the July meeting. And that's about where we're at.
Good.
Okay, great.
Yes, I have one question.
Yes.
What's the timetable? How
Um,
long do we have?
2025.
Was it basically the calendar year, Tara, by the end of this year?
Well, we'll go as it'll be up to you guys, right? I mean, I'll keep up.
We can do it. This has been hanging over our heads. But in theory, I mean, because was it 2 years ago we'd engage the public in a discussion? It would be nice to have something to bring back to them sooner rather than later.
Well, I
Isn't
think
it something that we have to show, propose, make aware at town meetings?
no,
Mark?
no, the
No?
planning board adopts the plan, but what I was gonna suggest is when you're comfortable with a draft set of goals, or you're still having the debate over the goals, why not put those on the town website and get some public input? We could set up a SurveyMonkey link for, I can help you set up a way for people to chime in on a draft set of goals so that you bring the community back into the conversation.
Yeah, that'd be important.
And we could certainly have a meeting, a public hearing at any time about this, whenever we want, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be attending anything in public till the spread has stopped, because I don't want to be Typhoid Mary. I work for 9 of you.
Okay,
I
fair
wanna
enough.
be the one that brings a variant from one town to another. We'll see.
But I think a survey could be very effective. But back to Lisa's question, I think we should have a goal of finishing this sooner rather than later. Of course, doing a thorough job, but I feel like with Tara's guidance, we'd be able to, the very latest by next March, have it finished. Wouldn't you all agree?
Yes.
Okay, Tara, you're giving me the hairy eyeball.
What are you smoking?
Well, you know what? I think it comes down to you guys just have to make decisions. You have
Yes,
to discuss it.
yes.
And you
I
have
think it's a
to
good
make
idea to
decision.
have a goal.
Have a goal that
Yeah.
by the end of November, beginning of December, whatever you do, your December meeting, that's it. We're gonna publish something and then change what you publish, but at least have something in writing by the end of the year. I think that's
Yeah.
what it's gonna come
We don't need a debate, we blame Tara.
down. No, you don't need your phone.
Mark knows us too well. Okay.
No, it's like, you just gotta set that.
Yes, yes, no, it's good. Thank you, Lisa. Good point. We'll have that goal. Okay. So anything else on this, Tara, or are we good to move on?
I'm good, thanks.
I just wanted to bring up briefly, or revisit rather, there had been some discussion about bed and breakfast in LDR under certain conditions. And it was brought up last time too close to when we were, our timing for bringing things to town meeting. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to revisit that or not. I think it might have even been Mike, not to put you on the spot, who brought up.
Well, I brought it up because a resident approached me and said that they were not happy with our decision. And I invited them and they said, well, maybe you should say that maybe you guys want to revisit, without mentioning any names. And I said, if people came forward and were pretty adamant, people that are in LDR, people were pretty adamant that they felt that there should not be a bed and breakfast and that we left it that way. And that is the way our zoning is.
Mhm.
And in order to change it in any way, we would have to revisit the entire discussion of bed and breakfast in LDR and bring it forth at town meeting as
Exactly.
a change again.
Exactly.
I got it right.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's why
All
I
right.
asked him.
My feeling personally, even though I obviously don't live in LDR, is that LDR is not an appropriate place for a bed and breakfast, even though theoretically it might be the only place for a bed and breakfast, which kind of is an oxymoron. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay.
And I think,
I agree.
Okay.
so it is there. I know that there are at least a couple people that disagree. We're a town where people are welcome to disagree. I think that's where we stand
Yeah,
today.
yeah. No, I had it in my notes that it was brought up too late in the process to really do anything more with. I know they were talking about like a minimum lot size of like 2 acres or something like that. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to revisit that at all, or we're happy with where things are at.
But I have one comment to make on this kind of thing. Like, somebody could buy 2 homes, like, let's say up on Snow Mountain, 2 adjoining homes, and make it completely bed and breakfast. Happened in Vienna,
Mhm.
you know, the buildings,
Yep.
completely overdone.
Yep.
And the owner is not living there.
Well, theoretically, as I understand it, theoretically, if I owned 4 acres of land in LDR, theoretically, I could have those 4 acres rezoned to 6 subdivisions theoretically.
Rezoned?
Well, if I owned 8 acres as
Right,
a
if
parcel,
he could.
if I owned 4 acres, I could make it into 6 2/3. Is that the right math?
Sounds about right.
Huh?
Yeah. Subdivide.
Subdividing
Subdividing it.
into
Right.
6 subdivisions, and I could build houses on each with the central kitchen. It's kind of what you're saying. I could theoretically, I think, do that, except he couldn't have the central kitchen because that would be under the definition of a bed and breakfast. He could have 6, as I understand the rules. He could subdivide to 6 2/3 acres lots and build 6 houses there. But he couldn't have, say, everybody trot off to one central place for breakfast, for example.
Right.
That's as I understand.
No, that is how we have it now. Like I said, so if we're all happy with how things are at, we don't even have to.
Did I do
Well,
the math?
we should get some clarity about what is allowed now. You know, you're saying that it's very clear what's allowed. Just a statement as to what is allowed would be wonderful. Yeah, because we've run into this before with Huntwood, where we basically, the planning board said it's not allowed, and somehow it happened. And I'm not sure exactly why it happened. But approval was granted, because of who applied, and and they said, well, they've done all this work, let them have it, let them try to run it. Now, it never was successful, but that's another story.
Okay.
I have another thing that I live at the end of a driveway. Jerry lives next door. Now I have 5 bedrooms. I could rent out 4 bedrooms. How would you like that all those cars coming back and forth?
You don't have to ask me.
Yes, Terry's been very clear in his opinion, so it's, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So,
So we'll make it an agenda item for next
for
week.
July,
Clarify what is allowed. I mean, we'll start the
Right.
discussion with what the current regulation is, and then let your discussion go from there.
okay.
That's what I hear Bill.
Well, I'm concerned that do we have clarity on what is
I
allowed?
thought we did have clarity, but
I think you do now with the zoning amendments. I don't, if you asked me,
Statement is
is-
fine.
I didn't hear the question, but getting the sense is still an opinion that it's not clear what's allowed, but I think the zoning amendments have clarified things. If you would have asked me, is X allowed, I can look in your ordinance and give you a clear answer now.
That's the discussion. Let's get a
Okay.
review of that to make sure everybody's on the same.
okay. Okay, it just came up, Tara, because I had it in my notes from last spring that there had been a suggestion to revisit LDR with certain minimum lot sizes, but we were too late in the process. So I just wanted to make sure to revisit that when we weren't too late in the process.
Yeah, no, I meant the question, I wasn't following the question about what is allowed now. I know the bed and breakfast issue in LDR was still hanging out there. And you had agreed to revisit it, but I think it's pretty clear what is and isn't allowed now.
So I guess I'm a little bit, so for next month, you want to just have a general statement, Bill, of where bed and breakfasts are or are not allowed?
Right. I think we should, first of all, as a starting point, reach some agreement as to what the current zoning language allows and doesn't allow.
Well, bed and breakfast is allowed.
We have a discussion about what we could do differently. I'd like to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what's possible today.
Actually, do we all have updated printed copies of the zoning since the changes? We probably don't, do we?
Because right now, bed and breakfast is allowed by special exception in HDR, and it's a permitted use in BC, and it's not allowed in LDR, and that was with the last amendment.
Right,
That was the last one.
yeah.
We will get totally updated copies of the witness
Great, fantastic.
electronically, and we will print 10 copies.
Cool.
Stuff
Okay, great.
I hate to ask
by
this,
next week.
I hate to ask this,
Okay.
but can you hole punch them?
We will hold by next week.
Just so that we can put it in a, huh?
That's asking a lot.
I'm sorry. You know how demanding I am.
All right, so everyone can stop by and pick up, if you haven't printed it yourself,
By next week.
the current zoning, okay. All right. Great. So we're moving right along. Committee reports. Town core group has not met. Margaret, is there anything new on the grant applications that are floating out there?
No, they're still pending.
Yeah.
They're still pending.
Awesome, great. And it's not on here, but Conservation Commission?
Alicia, can you make sure on the committee report, the Conservation Commission is in there? So we are meeting, I think, in the next month. We don't have a whole lot on that end, but we do some exciting news that the town public commission bought some land. Mark can elaborate a little bit more on that, but it's pretty exciting news.
That's awesome.
I don't know how far we've got with it.
We've got the deed, we're just waiting for signature. It's
Okay.
all done. It
Okay.
was approved yesterday, the selectmen approved the deed. Copy.
Wendy, we can't hear John or Mark.
Oh.
If they're garbled.
Speak up, guys.
They speak up.
Roll in,
We
roll in.
The committee has bought some land. It's the land that is the last lot, I believe, in that new development area towards the I don't know.
It
whereabouts
is,
it?
it's the lot that abuts Snows Brook at the bridge.
Yeah.
On Valley Road. So it's the last lot in the Moose Run subdivision.
The one that's predominantly wetlands.
Yeah.
Predominantly wetlands, it has the trails on it.
Yeah, that's some trails on.
Kind of
it.
unbuildable.
Kind
There
of,
are, most of it is.
just a little bit. Probably
Kind
a gazebo in there or something.
So we,
That's not a bad idea.
the Waterville Company sold that to the Conservation Commission, to the town through the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commission will be deciding what to do with that parcel going forward.
I think it's just under 2 acres.
Just under 2 acres, like 1 3/4.
Big wetlands.
That's exciting. Awesome. Anything else?
Yes, this is probably a good time to ask this question so that everybody knows what's going on around here. Drought status, what on earth does that mean?
We, back in October of last year, the town placed a ban on water use for non-commercial outside use. Okay, so what that means is no watering lawns, no washing cars, no extraneous outdoor use of water from the public water supply.
That's what that
In
means
the
right now.
residential. Right now, as of the beginning of this week, we were running about 6 inches less precipitation than 2020 and about 20 inches less precipitation than 2019 for this time of the year. We had very little snow over the winter and very little rain. So we are significantly behind. And if you remember, the entire state was in drought status in 2020. So we are headed for even more severe status as we get later into the summer. And this is not unique to Waterville Valley. The entire state is seeing these conditions. So that affects water table and things like that. It's not, there isn't that it's just dry in the forest. It's like, people's, last summer, we had quite a few residential wells in this region that failed. Our wells, we monitor, we have the ability to monitor the level of the wells, and so far, the actual water table levels are still sufficient. But definitely, if you look around, the groundwater is.
Look at the river.
Yeah.
Look, I mean,
So it is very important for people to conserve as much as possible. is it voluntary or mandatory? It is mandatory right now for no irrigation especially. That's what we're watching the most on. So if we see sprinklers going, or if we see a particularly lush lawn, you're going to get a visit from the water department. And remember that the water that runs through your house is metered now. And we look at the water usage, and we will contact properties where there's a high use all during the summer. We
Let's
read
turn
those
off my
meters
irrigation system.
every month.
What about washing cars?
No, please don't.
So if you,
No,
is there,
and when I say no, please don't use public water to do that.
right,
If your property has your own well that's not connected, your own well should not be connected.
But your own well is going to affect the water table.
Well, we can't regulate your use of private water. We can encourage you not to do it, but we can't prohibit it. We can prohibit the use of public water to do that.
so if
And
someone,
that's what we've done right now.
if someone's washing their car, and the police go by, they'll stop and talk to them,
Well,
or no?
it's gonna be,
I'm sending
it's
my wife
gonna
a
be
thing
up
to turn
to
off.
the officer discretion. But yes, the officer can stop and say, please don't do that.
Okay.
What is this problem you see on the townhouses in the corner of Village? There's a lot of water coming across the path.
Yes.
Constantly.
Still.
Presidential.
Presidential,
Oh,
still.
presidential,
still.
yeah, that's a groundwater.
And it keeps coming up from one house and another.
That's groundwater. That is not, it's not a leak from the public water supply. It's just groundwater.
That never used to happen.
I know. I don't know what has changed. The other thing that the drought has done over the last 2 years is actually change the water course around town in several areas. So the groundwater is going in different places than we have seen it before.
Yeah, but that's been since early April. I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, it's been an ongoing problem. We
Yeah.
dealt with it actually all winter,
okay.
And to be,
but it is a groundwater.
and to be clear, the golf course system has its own pond, so
They
everyone
have
should
their
know
own,
that.
they have their own pond and they have their own well to replenish the pond. So all of the sprinklers that you see going at the golf course are from their private supply. They are not using public water to do that. And the summer blooms program with all of the flowers around town, they have an agreement with the selectmen they will draw water from Corcoran's Pond into a tanker, and they will go around and they will water the flowers at their own expense, utilizing water out of the pond.
Mark, your reference to number of inches,
Yeah.
is that an equivalent rainfall?
Yes, so, yes, that takes into account basically it's for calculation purposes, 12 inches of snow is an inch of rain.
Yeah, simplistic.
So if we're
So-
20 inches below the statistical reference for 2-3 years ago,
Yeah.
but 20 inches of rain is tremendous.
Yes, and 2019, we ended the year in 2019, 21 inches below, or in 2020, we ended the year 20 inches below 2019.
So this is measured rainfall.
Yes, measured precipitation, that includes all the snow in the winter as well.
Correct. And we get this data, what's the source of the data?
We track that at the treatment plant every day.
It's significant.
Yes, it is. It is significant, and that's why we're so concerned with where we are right now with 2021. You know, we see the little bit of rain that we've had over the past couple of weeks. That's not even the norm for the month. You know, it's not, we're not going into the deficit, right? We need significant rain for an extended period of time to get back to the norm. That's what's most concerning about this.
What's concerning to me is not the picture you paint, but that the state keeps issuing things that says we're in a moderate drought area.
Well, yes, it's still,
Well, it sounds, the paint, the word, the picture you're painting would suggest severe drought, that we're heading towards severe drought.
what I think is going to happen, Bill, is that as we go through the summer, that moderate drought statewide is going to increase to severe drought, because we're going to continue to fall further behind.
And do the water use regulations tighten as that category changes?
The state will give us recommendations if we should tighten further than what we've done so far. So far, what the selectmen are doing is what the state has recommended.
How does it,
Because, right, just let me, one more thing. Because the ban that we have put in is for residential use. We have not addressed commercial use yet. Okay, so the next step could be things like going to the athletic center and talking to them about water for the pools and things like that. We still are not regulating that.
I hate to ask this question because we know we have enough problems with doing the weather forecast for tomorrow.
Right.
But do we have any idea when you talk to NOAA or other people, whether or not what our lawn range?
The last thing that I saw was that we're supposed to get normal rainfall, whatever that is, for into the summer. So
That'd be good.
I hope that would be very good. I mean, if we could start to cut into the deficit a little bit, that would be, you know, and I know from the resort standpoint, we want it to be sunny, but also from the resort standpoint, we want it to be a little bit rainy as well.
Yeah.
We need rain.
We need tennis courts, for example.
Well, exactly.
so my question is, can we let the town know this, the residents? I see a lot of people washing their cars, so this is my question. They have no idea what's going on. They don't go on the internet, they don't go down to the post office, so how can we do that?
The water bill?
We have put notices in the bills before, and we have another bill that will be coming out the first week of July, so we will include it with that. We have a flyer.
Okay, good.
We'll go.
As a point of comparison, what was the rainfall during Hurricane Irene?
We received 22 inches in a 12-hour period.
So that's the amount of water, hopefully dispersed over a much greater period of time, but that's the deficit.
Yes, that amount of rain is the deficit, right?
You could visualize.
Remember, but remember, Bill, that's the deficit. That's not even keeping up with normal. Right?
I understand that.
Yeah, that's how severe it is. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm most concerned with what the water table is going to do and maintaining the level in our wells for potable water.
Yes. As water tables go down very slowly, and obviously they replenish very slowly, So
Right.
even if we had a significant rainfall this summer, the water table wouldn't go up very much, if at all.
Right, we just need to start getting the groundwater, not even worrying about the water table at this point, just getting the groundwater back. Yeah. The other thing that it's interesting to note is on our wastewater side of our operation, the amount of water coming into the plant, the influent, is still pretty close to what is our historical average. But that in
That's
the past,
You can't compare
Has-
that.
well, wait. That in the past has included rain, okay? So we have a much greater day-to-day use of our wastewater because, and so when we start getting the rain again, we're probably going to see our wastewater numbers be very high
Mark, as a percentage,
as a percentage.
no, but as a percentage, our population went up 40,
30%.
30%. I mean, that's in a year. That's pretty drastic.
How does the rainwater get into the treatment?
Well, the lagoons themselves, it's 100,000 gallons per inch that go into the lagoons. So every foot of snow or every inch of rain puts 100,000 gallons into our wastewater system. And then there is some minor infiltration in the flow around the covers of the manholes and, breaks. There are small breaks. Just, that's what happens underground.
Another question, how many residents are there?
So right now, about 600 full-time residents.
Great. Now, I just wanted to take a minute just to clarify. I know we talked about next month, how it's critical to have, a quorum of, or sorry, not next month, the 24th, how it's critical to have a quorum of people here. But for next month, it's going to be the same thing. Right. So it's, if you can clarify, Mark. So tomorrow, the governor is going to
As of
probably end.
midnight tonight.
Yep.
The emergency order is gone, and he has said he is not renewing.
Okay.
So as of midnight tonight, we can no longer have the online remote meetings the way we've been doing since March of 2020.
Now, can we do them, say, for, the subcommittee meetings that need to be open to the public? Can they still meet via Zoom?
No.
so
We're going back to
everything.
91A.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have a public meeting, the public must have access to that meeting.
And physically.
Access.
Are-
Okay, so when you have your subcommittee meetings.
Yep.
You need to have them here, or we need to know where they're going to be, and we need to post that is happening, not so the public can participate, but so they can listen to what you're doing.
So they can, now would we continue to offer a Zoom? Is the town looking at continuing that as a way to increase, because we've had so much public engagement. It's been really great with the Zoom
Yes,
access.
if you want to, setting up a Zoom meeting is not a big deal. We can do that. We just need a little bit of notice to do it.
And you're prepared to do it.
We will set it up and we will start the meeting, making one of the people a co-host, right? One of the attendees the co-host, and you can control.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Those subcommittee meetings
Mhm.
do not have to be recorded, however.
No, they're just workshops.
So,
There's
so
no
for example,
Yeah.
example, I have my own Zoom account
Yeah.
for things that I have to do.
Yeah.
Other than in Waterville. And theoretically, if I have a subcommittee or whatever, I could use my Zoom account for that because it doesn't have to be recorded for the town.
We just need to.
As long as I
that's
tell you what it
correct,
is.
As long as we get the link so that
And
we can provide a
Okay.
public notice of that.
Okay.
link. So, yeah, I don't care what Zoom account it comes from. You know, Sharon or Alicia, our staff will set up a Zoom meeting if you want to. If you want to do it yourself and give us the link, that's what we
Okay.
need to post.
That-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's not a big deal. Like, it's
Okay.
very easy to do. The thing I don't want to have to do though, is I don't want to have staff time to actually facilitate the meeting. We'd like to turn it over to someone to be the facilitator. If you have a problem or we need to, we'll support you. But on a regular basis, I'd like to try to have it be the person who's doing it, especially these subcommittee meetings, because there's going to be a lot of them going on.
Right.
Okay, we'll help you whatever we need to do, but if you can, please.
Do the selectmen intend to continue the Zoom discussions as well?
No, well, the way and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way the selectmen are doing it now is they're meeting in person.
Right.
By 91A, if one of them cannot physically be there, then they will either Zoom in or call in, like they've been able to do under 91A, right? And then the public will be able to watch the meeting live on our YouTube channel, and we will record all of the meetings, continue to record all of the meetings, and post it on YouTube.
Right.
So we're going to use our
So
YouTube channel.
you're going to use the YouTube link
Correct,
to provide public access?
correct.
Now, that's what you had done in the past for planning board, right?
Yes, and we actually are recording this one, and we are
Is it just
live on
joint?
YouTube.
Okay.
So one of the things we need to decide as a planning board, do we want to continue to provide Zoom access for the public particularly? I agree with you, Wendy, that the public access has been really beneficial.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose it. And I think just doing Zoom, just doing YouTube, we're going to lose some participation level.
I agree.
So, part of it is just marketing,
Yes.
and, but anyway, I would like to see us continue to, I for one would like us to continue the Zoom portions of these meetings indefinitely.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just, clicking on the link, I think has become almost second nature to people, even though it's only been a year.
Right.
But
Well, putting out a memo ahead of time that says, here's the link, just click on it. It's like last night, I was trying to decide, I couldn't remember whether we had agreed that it was an in-person meeting or a public meeting, a Zoom meeting. So I had to go to the town website, and it's not so easy to find it on the town website,
Right.
Yeah. yeah,
Difficult.
it is.
But I found the link, but then, it answered my question that the meeting was going to be in public. It's going to be an in-person meeting.
Okay, can I get a clarification on the two comments just made? What is so difficult? What we posted on the homepage as the top thing, it's the very first thing when you open the homepage, is there is a planning board meeting, here's the link.
Right.
Well, it
It's
doesn't
also-
say that. It
Also
doesn't
through
say
the
that.
calendar. I
And
do,
it's on the
I
calendar
do it
as
through the
well.
calendar.
I mean, how,
You gotta go to a secondary link. And what I found last night was I had to click on the planning board meeting
Yeah,
and then it became available. But I had to know enough that I could click on the planning board meeting. It was on the calendar, there was a planning board meeting. But then to get from there to the Zoom link, I had to literally click on the planning board meeting.
as opposed to having the Zoom link just right there
Well,
on
I
the
mean,
homepage.
the way it's described is
So if we-
that
if
it's
we
on the
said
front
planning-
page.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing that said click planning board meeting or anything like that.
Okay, we will get that language
That would be
on
great.
there.
I
Yeah.
found a hunt, had a hunt for it as well.
Yeah,
Where is,
Is the rest of the board in agreement that we want to continue with the Zoom?
Wendy,
Um,
yes.
yeah, as someone who is unfortunately going to have to travel a lot, I would appreciate it because that way I could participate.
Excellent.
Yep, that's good. Let's do that.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, so,
Wendy, this is Rich.
Rich, yes,
If I could, the select board took 3 decisions late yesterday afternoon that I think the planning board would be interested in hearing about. I can give a very brief discussion or a very brief description of those 3 if you'd like.
please.
So first, and I'll keep this very short because we're coming up on 2 hours. First, with regard to the new zoning amendments on short-term rentals, the select board has been working with Department of Public Safety, with Tara, and with the code enforcement officer to develop a permitting a form and a procedure so that people can start applying for the permits that we now require for more than 30 days a calendar year. And the select board decided that we're very close to finishing that off, but that this this procedure will begin on 1 September of this year. Item 2, parking. The select board failed to deal with a warrant article for this past town meeting as we had planned to do. So we're still betwixt and between on-street parking. Right now, there's a selectman ordinance, again, that requires town meeting approval to change it, which expressly prohibits all on-street parking. At the same time, we changed our zoning to a zoning ordinance to allow, I believe, allow developers to count on-street parking as a way to meet the parking requirements for any development that they would plan here in the valley. So we need to fix this, and the select board wants to fix this issue in time to present something to the town at town meeting next year to resolve, that may be too strong a word, but to deal with the issue of on-street parking. This has come up because of Craig Larson's request to continue the on-street parking between Village and Boulder Path, which we have allowed, decided to allow last night until we can resolve or again deal with how we want to deal overall into town with on-street parking. So there may be an opportunity there for a select board and planning board to get together, or representatives to get together and maybe noodle through some of the ways we want to deal with that. And the third item, God help me, what was one more item? As I said, we've been going here for, oh yes, food trucks. So on food trucks, the select board decided that I keep on getting the name of the form wrong. Mark, is it off-site solicitation? Is that correct? Off premises?
Yes.
So the select board took the decision to allow food trucks on a daily basis. Make sure I describe this correctly. Via permitting using the off-site solicitation permit. That would be just for a particular day. The code enforcement officer has been granted the power via a special exception to allow that food truck, say, to return the following day, thinking maybe of a weekend or a long weekend, but not to stay overnight so that to make it less burdensome. Anything beyond that will require a minor site plan review per our site plan review regulation, where it talks about increases in dining, outside dining. So those
Now,
are the three decisions.
Sorry, when you say anything beyond that, do you mean, for example, if a food truck is going to be in a location for every Sunday of a period of time? Is that when you need a minor site plan, or does that fall under the off-site solicitation?
You know, I think, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, it was unclear to me if we actually addressed that whether that could be that would be a separate, that could be a separate request each and every weekend for that day, a permit requested. But beyond that, as I understood it, if it was a longer term thing, it would require minor site plan review. Is that how we ended up, Mark, on that one?
Yes, that's what my notes said.
Right.
The
Yeah,
truck-
again, it was a long meeting. We were 2 hours in, so I'm just trying to remember that meeting
Yeah.
last night that I was at.
So the truck can come in, but only for a single day.
Right,
Okay, they must leave
right,
the overnight.
right.
But they
And use
can
the
come
permit.
back the next day, or they can come back the next Sunday, or whatever.
Okay,
Let me ask a
But
clarification
they
question.
cannot park somewhere for the entire summer, or for a week, or whatever at a time. They have to physically depart
now what about,
Depart to
qua-
where?
to wherever they go.
So, well, I'm gonna ask a question. So if I had a food truck in my yard,
Yeah.
which I was in my, but I have one in my yard,
Mhm.
and it's there for Saturday.
Yeah.
And I also had requested one for Sunday.
Mhm.
Can they then just drive over to Depot Camp and leave it there and come back the next day?
Well, no, because they can't go to people who can park overnight, so.
Well, but wait, they're not serving anything, they're nothing else, they're just parking there, as opposed to where they're actually gonna function.
Oh,
Um,
Depot Camp is not town property, so.
well,
Yeah.
It's not town property.
but somewhere
Wherever they
else.
go, yes, if they leave the site and go somewhere else
Right.
and then come back, that would be an allowable.
Okay,
but
I'm
That's
just-
going to be discussed
I
by
just,
the
I
code
just,
enforcement officer about, and if they continue to come back every day for the week, we're gonna have to have further discussions with the selectmen. Because the intent is for these trucks, right now, the trucks are coming in, but they're coming in maybe once a week, or they're coming in once every 2 weeks, or something like that. So the intent is just that they not be a permanent fixture on the property, that they're only there during the day for a day at a time, and then they leave.
okay,
So, to play devil's advocate,
Yeah,
if there are 7 food trucks, each of whom applies for one day, but they rotate their different days, doesn't that essentially create a permanent?
well, that will have to be discussed with the board, but yes, right now, your scenario could happen.
Okay,
7 different trucks could come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way to Sunday. Yes.
so it's the select board's purview to decide when we need to step in and do a minor site plan review.
Yes.
Is that where we're at? So we
Right
can, we,
now-
as a planning board, we don't need to worry about it.
Right now, that, yes, they're saying that does not rise to the level of minor site plan review.
Okay.
However, that is something you can send a message to the selectmen and say, we think you're wrong, if that's what the planning board thinks they're wrong.
Hmm.
Okay,
I think we
It's not
can
as
have,
easy as this, is it?
it's not as easy as it sounds. I think we're gonna have to put this on an agenda item, Madam Chairman, Chairperson.
I mean, the idea was simply to, because this is happening, to try to get our arms around it now as we work
Yeah.
our way through this. yes, there could be a conflict with the site plan regulations in this regard, but that's something we, as Mark said, that we would have to deal with together.
Can we do some sort of a joint meeting, like a
Yeah.
workshop between the select
Sure.
board and board? Just, I'd really like
Yeah.
to know
Mm.
where we're at with this, or where we want to be with this. I mean, maybe
That's
for the
fine.
summer we
What-
muddle through, but
Yeah.
so we know
Yeah.
come next winter how we're gonna do, because parking is going to potentially be a problem. So,
Yeah,
Yes,
that is the issue.
And the
Yeah.
resort was their art.
Well, the only
Because
thing,
it's huge.
rather than,
Right.
the board's approach to this is, rather than create a whole new system.
Yeah.
We have this off-site solicitation permit, which was, the idea behind that was a business that wanted to sell something where they weren't the property owner, where they were doing the sales.
Yep.
And the walking up, the encyclopedia salesman.
Yep.
Knocking on your door,
Go ahead.
that's what it was designed for.
Right.
And we've had this in place for a long time, so people are used to, if you have a hot dog cart or something and you wanna roll it around town, you come in and you get the off-site solicitation permit, because as part of that permit, you have to have permission from the property owner where you're going to be doing the sales.
sure.
So that's the way we brought the property owner
and there's a health and sanitation too.
in a health and sanitation, making sure that they've got the state required licenses to sell whatever they're selling.
Okay.
So we have a meeting on the 23rd of June. If you would like it to be an agenda item, we certainly can do that.
So we could do something on the 23rd and the 24th.
Yeah, whatever. Might as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes,
The truck that has been proposed by the resort, this very large Army surplus vehicle, I presume that's classified as a food truck.
Yes.
but it's on their property that they're gonna be using it, right?
Yeah, they will not need this permit, Bill, as long as they park that truck on their property.
I
Well, the
understand.
way the board's looking at it right now, for what the discussion we just had about food trucks, they would not need the off-site solicitation permit.
When you say they park it on their property, any of the properties they own?
Yeah, that's what the off-site solicitation is. If they are the property owner, they don't need,
Don't they need a license to serve food?
they get
They
it
have
from the
that.
state. They have a liquor license and they have a food license.
For the food truck?
They get that from the state, that's not a local license.
So the trucks at the golf course wouldn't need a permit?
No, the
They
trucks
do.
at the golf course would need a permit. However, if Craig started a food truck, he could potentially park that on the golf course,
His own property?
his own property. Now, remember too, the golf course is a little bit different than other businesses in town in that they already have a food and beverage license for a mobile application. So they can drive a golf cart around and serve beer and hot dogs if they want. That's a license they already have
Of theirs,
of theirs,
but not of a, not of a,
not of a
Separate.
third party.
Right.
That's
okay, got it. Right.
So the whole thing, if Craig started a food truck thing, well, he's already kind of got the license.
If
As
he
long as he
owns,
keeps it on the golf course.
if he owns the food truck,
If he owns a food truck and it stays on the golf course. Yes.
yes, got it.
Sorry. I
Okay,
guess it's not an easy.
Bill, you can have buy a food truck,
Yeah,
Start a food.
keep it at your house.
right.
thank you, Bill. So on the 23rd, the select board meeting, is that going to be an agenda item, or are you saying you can add it?
I can add it.
Well, no, but is that, are we saying that that is a joint, that portion of the select board meeting is a joint workshop with us?
We can put that on the agenda.
Is that what we're suggesting, Wendy?
That's what they put out there. We could look at doing it later. I mean, I think it
It's
depends on
whatever-
how
whenever you
comfortable,
want.
I think it depends on how comfortable the board is with kind of letting things roll. No pun intended for the food trucks. And, you know, if we don't feel like it's something that we need to take action on, and we just, if it's just a clarification and we want to push it off until July or August.
Well, does the whole board have to meet with the select board?
I mean,
Just some of us and then report?
yeah, it could just be some of us.
Well, then you don't need a joint meeting, you just have an agenda item. So
Okay,
Well, but if it is,
if it's a quorum, it's gonna be a joint meeting.
Oh, I see.
depends on how many.
the question is, do we think this is significant enough to
Do we
make
want
it a
to?
joint meeting?
Right.
I guess we need I need a consensus.
Yep, so we're gonna do, I'm gonna pull up my little list again. And get people's feedback. And so I can pick on Nancy now. What are your thoughts on this, Nance?
I'm not exactly sure what the question is about food trucks. What are you exactly asking?
Well, I think my concern is where the line comes in, that we need to do a minor site plan review or not. Is it the volume of trucks involved? Is it the frequency with which trucks are in a location? Or is it just that we notice that there's a parking impact? I'd like to know where that trigger is.
But it's not a yucks and giggles, Nancy. Let's suppose that on the 4th of July celebration, somebody brings in 6 food trucks. Do we have a problem with that?
If it's for an event, in theory, not, right? But if
But
it turns into, ooh, this is successful, let's do it every weekend, then, yeah,
You know,
That's why we need to discuss it.
that's why
why
we need to discuss
I'm
this.
wondering where that trigger is.
Yeah, me too.
You know,
It was the intent of the select board that for something that was regular like that, that it would require minor site plan review.
you know, I think we need to schedule this discussion, including the volume, frequency, parking issues. And I think the other issue is competition with local businesses. And
Very much so.
have it on the agenda, because I worry that the other restaurants in town also will have something to say about this. And
That's a
I'd
good
like to
point,
know
yep.
what they have to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we should just
Piece of plate.
schedule a discussion at a regular meeting.
So a discussion at one of our meetings versus a joint meeting with the select board?
Well, I mean, who is it really up to in the end? Is it like, are we the ones that are actually pulling out the regulations?
Well, the select board is the enforcement arm. We kind of serve at their pleasure. So I would think it goes to the select board, right?
Well, except my understanding is what I'm suggesting, for whatever it's worth, is that we come up with a recommendation of what we think. All right? And before we have a joint meeting or a joint workshop or a suggestion, I think we have to figure out what we think we should do, and then go and sit down with the select board and say, okay, guys, this is what we think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do we have to have a big joint meeting? And go from there. I think, but we have to figure out in our brains, or lack
Yeah.
of brains.
Yeah,
I think the way to look at this is that the select board took a decision yesterday about how to approach food trucks. And it's up to the planning board to determine whether they want to respond to that decision positively, negatively, or however.
Just
Okay.
kind of what's,
yeah,
kind
So
of
an
the same thing
agenda
I'm saying.
item
For
your
July.
Yeah, kind of what
Okay.
I'm saying. as well.
yeah.
Yep.
With our scheduled meeting, and make sure to let the restaurants know that we're going to be talking about this and thinking
Yeah.
about it, and schedule it.
Yeah,
Especially the Fernando and Tom from the pizza place.
Yep.
And even Sean,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and of course, Tom and Bob, Barbara, and you as well. You'd be here.
And you need to tell Craig.
And Craig,
Oh,
and Craig,
absolutely.
I forgot
Yeah,
about Craig, but I forgot about Craig.
Can we ask Tara's thoughts on that? Is that something she would want to comment on?
Do you have any experience with this, Tara, if you're still plugged in?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
That was
Well,
easy.
can you-
Other than something like a food truck's typically regulated by the select board. My sense with what I heard from Rich made sense to me, that if a business is hosting a food truck regularly on the property, that ought to be a minor site plan review.
I think the definition of regularly.
Yeah.
Or I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Is where does it change from that food truck use to minor site plan review?
Yep.
Trying to codify that is the biggest.
Okay. All right. So we'll just add this for our July meeting. That might be the easiest.
Yeah,
Everyone in agreement with that?
yeah.
Yes.
What's the
Spence,
decision, Nancy?
What's
Just,
that?
Well, what is the decision? Did we decide that
To
we're
add
gonna
the
make-
food truck, to add the food truck discussion to our July meeting to come up with what we would suggest as parameters, make sure that the restaurants are invited so we can get some feedback.
Okay. I'm in agreement with that.
All right.
Final thing from the town's perspective, we've received our wastewater treatment plant new permit requirements. We are reviewing them, and our comments back to the EPA, because they give us time to review and make comments. Our reviews back to the EPA are due on the 23rd of June. It will take approximately 1 to 2 months for them to review our comments, make final decision on whether or not they're going to modify any of the permit requirements, and then issue our final permit. This is a 5-year permit. We anticipate that we will get the final permit in August of this year. So it would run from 2022 to 2027. And
That's the permit to build.
no, this is the permit to discharge into the Mad River. So this is all of the requirements to
Right.
run our plant. So the permit to build is not an EPA permit, it's a state permit. So the EPA permit, though, is the standards that we have to treat the water, which is what we will design the new plant to meet.
Just out of curiosity, thank you very much. I did read that which was incredibly informative and good sleep material. Is the town's response to that going to be available to those of us that need sleeping material?
We will publish what we respond back.
Thank you.
Was the written document any different than what you had anticipated from the verbal?
It was about 90% what they told us in December. They actually backed off of a couple of things that they told us they were going to do when they gave us the verbal in December, minor things.
That
But
10%?
they actually stiffened a couple of the requirements as well. So it
10% didn't change anything.
the 10%, no, not substantially. The one thing that they surprised us with is that our permit has always been about that plant, that building over there. the effluent going into the Mad River. That's what our permit since 1972 has been. Now they have expanded, the EPA now is regulating our entire collection system. So all the manholes, all the sewer lines, everything are now part of the EPA permit. So there will be a substantial amount of work in inventorying that, in inspecting that every year, and the CIP for fixing that is now going to be reported to the EPA, and they will have say as to whether or not they think we're doing enough to maintain it.
As I read it, and again, that's not my field, but as I read it, we have a catch basin, for example, outside of our road. Theoretically, that catch basin, which is catching water, which is going into the groundwater, theoretically is now going to have to be
No, only if it goes
into the river.
No, only if it goes into the sewer treatment. So the only water that the EPA is monitoring is the influent into that.
So
So if it's a
Cat-
catch basin that simply goes to the river, that's not part of it.
that doesn't make sense. That's where I read it.
No,
That's,
there's two
that's,
different
that's,
things.
that's better.
Stormwater
That's
and wastewater.
that's better.
Stormwater and wastewater.
That's
They're
fine.
two separate. And in fact, the permit requires us to prove every year that we are separating stormwater from wastewater.
That's how,
Because they
that,
do not
that's what
want-
confused me.
They do not want you treating storm.
Okay,
It costs money to do.
because I think that's fine.
But Terry, the permit changes are substantial, both in the frequency of reporting and the permit limits
From the current.
from the current. It's, it has verified that there is no way for us to utilize the existing plant. We must build something different. Because we can't. One other little tidbit is that the EPA is going to make us over the next 5 years monitor some items like nitrates and
Nitrites.
and PFAS contaminants levels. It states in the permit that at the end of the 5 years, there will be additional requirements put on us in 2027 to treat for those things.
You had
And
anticipated that.
No, that was
new.
not, we thought we might have to monitor them, but they've stated in the permit that they're having us monitor them so that they will put limits on us in the next permit.
Mm.
It actually says that. So that is not good news, but it is good in the sense that we're gonna be able to build the new plant to be able to accommodate those treatments.
Hmm.
So it's
Potentially
just,
making it a
they're
little more
just
expensive.
continuing to crank down.
It's still anticipated then we're gonna be dumping into the river then?
We're still gonna look at the groundwater discharge option. But yeah, right now, from an ability to deal with future development, it looks like discharging to the river is the most likely, the best way to go. But we are required by DES to look at all options.
Fun.
Alrighty. On that
Yep.
note,
Another,
Well, I just want you to know where
No,
the $5
yes.
million is going, so.
Oh, we appreciate it.
good to keep track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
Um,
gonna go.
And it's gonna go.
Yes. So just as a review of our calendar, so the 24th at 8 AM, we have our special meeting to go over Ben Legary's proposal of his whatever, hearing. Our next regular meeting, July 8th, 8 AM. Primarily, and both of those, of course, as we've discussed, primarily in person. There will be Zoom access for those who are away.
Board members as well as public.
Yeah, we just need to make sure we keep that quorum,
Which one?
Present,
That's
though.
24th?
both the 24th and the 8th. We have to,
It's been determined that is okay.
Under 91A, as long as a majority of the regular members are physically here, then other people can attend electronically.
I'm sure that'll bring interesting things with it. Does anyone have anything else?
One question, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
is that what is the town's plan to go ahead with the construction of the new pipeline under the Mad River to connect the well that's now online?
That is going out to bid next week. Bids will be due by mid-July. And we hope to have the contractor on board and working by early to middle August. With all of the pipe work actually in the ground before the beginning of November. And then with the controls, connecting it all to the building and putting all the electrical stuff and the controls in place, will be a second contract, and we would see that work being done over the winter. So all the pipe work, all the physical groundwork will be done this summer.
So by what, late fall, we might have another well online?
No, because we gotta get the controls in place. I would anticipate that probably we would be able to bring well 3 back online by this time next year.
Say that again, this time next week?
This time next year.
Next year, that sounds good, yeah.
This
All
time
right,
next-
I blame it on the microphone, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's not any,
Mark.
we don't anticipate having another well online soon.
No, we are working, we're doing fine with well 2 and well 4.
Okay,
So they are providing, and like I said, we're monitoring those levels, and so far, so good.
Mark, I thought you said at town meeting that the $900,000 road fix,
Yeah.
whatever, was not actually going to happen until next year because of problems getting contractors. Is that true? Or
No,
did I
the
mishear?
reason it will happen next year, not this year, unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
But that's because of we're one of the projects that's being fought over in Washington right now.
Yes, I know that.
So if we've already asked if we could start the project now and get reimbursed, and they
Can't
said
do
no.
that. Can't do
So we have to wait until the federal funding is decided on before we can put it out to bid. So
that. And that's not going to happen until July.
we will bid that at the end of this year, have the contractor lined up, ready to go. And we want to begin that as early in the spring next year.
Is all the engineering necessary to do that all?
All of the design engineering, 90% of the design engineering is done. We need some final tweaking of the actual plans before we put it out to bid. But that money is included in the money we've requested from the FIP for that engineering. But yeah, there's probably less than a month worth of engineering work left, and then they can get it out to bid.
Those plans available for looking at?
Yeah,
Actually, maybe you could email them to
It's
everyone.
actually, you've received them before because they're the original plans that we did to extend the entrance project
Yeah.
on Tecumseh Road and Snows Brook. Those have not, none of that,
They haven't become more detailed.
no, not yet. That's the work we've deferred to get it paid for by the feds.
Okay,
Partial.
so,
Well,
Hopefully as much as possible.
all right. So, if there isn't anything else, take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I didn't actually make a motion, I want to take a motion, so you can make the motion.
I'm gonna second it anyway.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. John's
Madam
got you.
Chairman, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Bill. So John has seconded it.
He already
Whatever.
did.
He already did. All right, all those in favor, Nancy,
Nancy, yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Larson's not here, Wendy, yes, John, obviously, yes, Rich,
Rich, yes.
Bill Spence.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Just so you know.
Good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, bye.
We
Okay, hang on. Are we offline? Thank you. Oh,
some of us were talking about having a one-time farmer's market in.
Okay.
And before we did that, since farmer's markets kind of talked about having somebody else, we said we should talk to Tom about it.
mhm.